I'm Trey Detweiler, a board member for HAY.
Aaron Johnson, I am a board member for Helping Empower Youth. The decision to serve on HAY's board wasn't a hard one.
I serve with Helping Empower Youth for a number of different reasons. One, I believe in this mission. I remember Casey and I have been in this youth development world for a number of years.
When I met Casey, it was actually doing work.
We worked together on a lot of large projects, national and local. And when we had an opportunity to do something right here in our city with students that used to look like us, and young people that used to do the same things that we used to do, we had an opportunity. I definitely wanted to jump on board and support.
So a lot of times in this space, what you'll find is the utilization of really big words and high level words that garner tons of feelings, but they are not often followed by true work that is done for love or out of love. And when I met Casey, I could see that she was doing the work out of love. So when she asked me, I said, sure.
One of the challenges when we think about the philanthropic community and the funding community is that a lot of times the agencies with the larger marketing budgets get the better funding or get more funding.
Philanthropy is important to organizations like HAY because it's about extending a hand of resources to organizations that are truly doing the work, not ego-driven, but for the actual love of the people, and particularly young people in HAY's case.
Philanthropy is the fulcrum of basically all of our work. If we have great philanthropy supporting our work, we can do even more. But also, if you think about it, what we're trying to do is not necessarily just put a Band-Aid on the problem. We're actually trying to eradicate the problem, solve the problem. And philanthropy is a big engine for that to occur. The better we're able to do that, the better we can actually serve the people that we are called to serve.
Being fully funded would sustain HAY through a myriad of different ways.
And so the better we are in not only connecting great programming to our great number of hearts and minds out there and great hands.
Not only would it fund programming, but it would fund the extension of love through everyone who is a part of HAY. Not only the volunteers, but also through people who are employed through HAY and the young people who are experiencing and growing and flourishing through HAY. So fully funded looks like more resources. It looks like more food. It looks like more learning. It looks like love. Organizations like HAY are out here. They need to know that while the waters may be muddy, there are organizations out here who are truly doing the heavy lifting, who are truly building relationships.
One of the things that I would say, being fully funded will allow us to really expand beyond where we are in this part of the city. We know that the challenges that we are attempting to solve here are not just happening in one part of Atlanta, one part of the region, one part of the state, but they're happening all over the country. And I think we have a model that can be codified, can be used all over the country, maybe even all over the world. And I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to really test and move and put some systems in place that others across the country and across the world can do the same. I think it's really important for you to identify or not confuse great marketing with effectiveness. But I do want you to look at, for those of us that are looking at HAY, looking at a sound investment into great programming, great leadership, you start to judge by efficacy. You've been doing really great work over the years. Don't just look at the flash and the hoopla. Look at who's actually creating not just good outputs, but actually good outcomes for the work they're doing.
I'll take a note from a esteemed CEO here in the nonprofit space, Nathaniel Smith. He says, change moves at the speed of trust. And I've grown to think that change or trust moved at the speed of relationships.
Hay is a fun place to be, and we always need volunteers. So please come out and join us and help us empower you.
Hay is love. And love looks like hard conversations. Love looks like waking up in the middle of the night and having a conversation with a young person. Love looks like telling a young person no. Love looks like looking inside of yourself and seeing where you may lack so that you don't traumatize others. Hay is love.
My name is Anthony Wilson. I am a fan and reporter of Hay. So organizations like Hay were founded to support those who oftentimes traditional services and capitalism leave behind. It's for those who are most vulnerable in our city, those who do have to sell water in order to survive. Philanthropy can fill a gap where other systems and services aren't. Particularly for Hay, I, as a supporter of Hay myself, I understand how dollars translate into results for kids and how each dollar is so important for outcomes for each of those students. It's important that we support organizations that are doing the hard work to fill in the gap where traditional services and the city have left behind. What funders need to know is that you may not see or hear of organizations like Hay because they're on the ground doing the hard work. They are knocking on doors, they are recruiting kids, they are doing the work that's necessary, and oftentimes they don't have the big budgets in order to hire staff to do development. They don't have someone to go talk to people who can give money, right? And so it's really important that the philanthropic community understands that organizations like Hay that are doing the work need all the support that they can get in order to continue to do the necessary work. Hay's dope. It's my favorite, honestly, my favorite nonprofit in the city. When I first moved to Atlanta, you can't help but see the young man on the corner selling water, right? And as a former teacher, I'm like, well, as a former high school teacher, I'm like, well, what's happening? Why are they out here? Like, what are the services? And I found Hay, and I was like, oh, there's someone trying to solve this unique problem. And it was near and dear to my heart. So Hay was one of the first organizations that I came to love in the city. And I think that they're actually solving a problem. And so that's why I love Hay so much. And people should know that it's just the work that it does, the vastness of it, right? So it's not only sit and spit or like you come to the Hay house and you learn something. It's actually, Hay cares about the whole life of a child. Hay cares about what's happening in the morning to what's happening in the evening. Did you eat? Have you showered? Have you taken, your girlfriend on a date, right? And so I think that the ambition of the organization matches the beauty and infinity of each of the boys, no matter where they come from or how they got here. Hay seems to try to reflect back to them someone that they may not see in hopes to build them into that person. Organizations like Hay are often overlooked because they're not sexy enough, right? They don't have the right networks, and they don't have, the leader didn't go, join the right things and all these things. I think organizations like Hay are overlooked because people don't want to solve these problems if it doesn't seem as there's a big return on investment. When you think about the boys that Hay serves, it's boys who other folks have given up on, right? And so when you think about when someone's giving money, they're thinking about return on investment. They're like, well, if everyone else has given up on these boys, then like this extra, like throwing back, cash behind it might not work. And so I think that folks overlook it because they don't believe in what Casey Benning believes about these boys and what the team at Hay believes about these boys. And so we just need more people who believe, as similarly as the board of Hay and the leaders of Hay and the staff of Hay, how they believe. We need more people, more folks with more money, deeper pockets to believe what we believe about Hay.
I'm Coach Boyd, co-founder, director of programming, and chairman of the board here at Help and Empower You. I do what I do for Hay because if I did not do it, I feel as though we would find ourselves exterminated as a race without the lack of these skills that I'm teaching. It is important that we finish these renovations because attempting to build the airplane while you're in it in the sky is difficult to do. I've added all that I can into the programming as we build, right? But building a retaining wall isn't a long-term sustainable programming structure, right? I should be teaching them how to garden already. But alas, we don't have $30,000 in the budget to pay somebody to come in and do it in a weekend. So I have to learn how to do it and do it myself and teach them how to do it at the same time without anybody losing limbs, hitting anyone over the head with a shovel, or being buried in the wall themselves. So that is the importance. Casey and I put our lives into this. It's not something that is a hobby or just some weekend kind of thing that we do. I quit my career to do this, not my job, my career of 18 years making airplanes at the world's biggest defense contractor, to do this full time, to invest in it full time, and to ensure that the next generation gets what I think is the blessings of the knowledge that myself and the men and women that we choose to provide examples for these children.
My name is Elijah. They call me Eli.
My name is Demarius. I'm one of the Hey Youth.
My name is Santonio. I'm a youth participant. Hey means opportunity and assistance, because we help a lot of people and we get a lot of help. And so either way it go, on both ends of the stick is good.
So what Hey means to me is like opportunity, like automatically. Because when I first, when Miss Casey and Coach Boyd heard of me, I was probably somewhere doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. So basically, they helped me with a lot. They showed me how to live when I get older. They helped me with a lot of things, financially and everything. So Hey means a lot to me.
I feel like Hey has taught us so far to be self-sufficient. So either way it go, I feel like I'll be able to make it.
Hey mean family to me for real, because Hey really helped me stay off the streets and out of trouble.
I've been with Hey for 3 years, so it's they have kept me out of a whole lot of trouble. It was stuff that I get into, and Hey just helped me out with it, a lot. That's why I be devastated, because I have nowhere I can go after school to keep me, how I put it, to keep me active, to keep me out of trouble and keep me out of the way.
Hey taught me life lessons and skills that I want to learn in the future. How to aim, archery and stuff. And they taught me how to build homesteads and stuff like that and so on.
In terms of archery, when we first started, I wouldn't have just outright said anybody was the best, because it's a learning process. But now I will outright say that I'm the best. Another example is we learn transferable skills, right? So not just archery specifically, but archery was the biggest one, because there was a lot of people saying that I wasn't the best. So I had to just make it known on camera that I was the best. But transferable skills such as we're going to start ham radio. We've been doing, what was it called, Coach Boyd? The Tide.
Knots.
Yeah, the knots. I'm talking about the name of the cord so I can. Paracord. We've been working with Paracord. We're gonna start ham radio. We've been doing a little bushcraft training, not too much, but just beginner level, out in the back, we're working on a garden.
Before I came with Hey, my communication was just off. I didn't know how to communicate with nobody. So they not only helped me learn how to communicate, they also helped me with a lot, my vocabulary. They taught me how to talk when it's certain times to talk, in meetings or in interviews and stuff like that. So that's what Hey have done for me. I wish people knew that Hey is something that's good for the youth. And I just want people to know that Hey is here for opportunity to help the younger people get through life and know about life before we get out there, because nothing else teaches us how to get through life. So that's something that I can say that Hey does for us, to teach us about the ways of life and how life is. They even teach us about businesses and everything. So
I feel like people should know about the things that we do and the impact that we have on other people, like the things that we do. Like, for example, I wouldn't go around and be like, oh, nah, every Saturday, bro, we handing out plates, bro. Every Saturday, we giving out food. I just be like, well, Saturdays, we give back to our community. We'll have a barbecue at the house and we chill, handle our business, and at the end of the day, go home, handle the rest of our day. But I just say I would like people to know the impact we had.
I really matured my anger, and Hey helped me mature my anger, because at first I used to just be mad at everything and at everybody, but Hey taught me to not let nobody control me or get in my head.
What is something you wish that others knew about Hey?
That we need more opportunities and funding.
How can communities show up better for Black boys?
Just like in all ways, kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it's open-ended, so
That's pretty open, yeah.
First answer is in all ways, but anybody want to go?
Now run it, coach.
Well, how can we show up better? I think by concentrating on our own circle of influences and not trying to necessarily solve the whole problem. And if you if you take our organization, for instance, we're focused on the west side of Atlanta, but hyper-focused in about four families. And if you really narrowed it down to it, even just looked at our summer program and budget alone, we put more money in through the amount of kids that were working in our summer program out of one family. Just the kids were making more money than the parents were bringing in the house. We were paying them more than their parents were bringing in for the whole summer. So 3 months out of the year, children were making more in a household than the parents were making. Not from a gigantic, big Walmart, but Hands-On Atlanta budgeted type of programming, but from a focused programming focused on more on a micro level. I think that's what I'm searching for, micro versus macro. So
I think to further that though, I think it's also taking that time to be individually relatable to or in relationship with. I think a lot of times about and I mentioned in my comments earlier about like the way in which we don't allow Black boys, one, to be kids. I think that's the biggest thing that bothers me a lot, is that like we expect Black boys to be adults. They gotta be grown-ups in all ways. And then we criminalize their childlike activity as though they're not supposed to still be young. And so that's the first thing. And two, like I said, we don't allow them to exist outside of the space of where they can just be people, just themselves. And like you mentioned, those families, like it requires that level of like intentionality to be in relationship with that individual child and that family, that most organizations and most people, even when they say they want to do this work, don't take the time to build that bridge, right? So like I said, taking the time to listen and listening to when they communicate to you, like what their needs are, what their thoughts are. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because that goes so far in it's building trust, at the end of the day.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we can do to really show up for Black people in general is we have to challenge narratives that we have intrinsically believe as well. Because we live in a society that has been created to perpetuate an oppressive ideology, oftentimes we intrinsically believe narratives that are not true. One of the things this entire year I focused on is ensuring that I am disruptive with narratives that are not true. I ask the question. I fight against confirmation bias. I fight against these biases because a lot of these biases are rooted in oppressive ideologies. Therefore, we cannot see the full child because they're not human.
Right.
Right? So when you talked about the humanization of black boys, the opposite of a human is one that is perceived as less than human. And when you are perceived as less than human, we can do anything to you because you're an animal. I find it very ironic how it seems as though animals here in America often have more rights and love than black boys. Black people in general.
Well, you know,
We gonna feed that dog.
Right. Or you going to jail if you kick that dog.
Yeah.
you put the dog on a leash and leave him in your yard, right? Like, you know, there's a lot to be said about it. And you know, there's a lot of historic context to that.
Yeah. But that's what I think. I think like once we start to really like change these narratives and really challenge narratives, we were talking earlier about the myth that third grade, you're not reading by the third grade, they're gonna create a jail cell for you. Simple Google teaches you that that's not the truth. And then when you start to really go deeper, I had a conversation earlier, and now I'll digress, with a friend of mine. I said, where did that come from?
Why would people perpetuate that anyway? I'm wondering off the top why.
Oh, no, it's deeper. It's a deep conversation.
Well, it trends out, right? So one of the things that we know, especially if it's a catchy little snapshot of something that gets repeated, that's really all things happen. That's how the narratives actually create.
Right.
You get a little limerick, so to speak, of something, and it just kind of poop, poop, poop. Oh yeah, and then someone repeats it, and it's like a little, and it's just like a verse, and then it just continues to move. We have to be. It turns into belief. Actually, as a matter of fact, well,
What's the activity we do in our trainings? Facts, myths, and values.
Yep, facts, myths, and values.
Yeah.
so I do the same thing. That's funny. I'm glad. So all of us are in that same space. But I think for me, I was thinking about just the simple thing of just showing up. Coach Boyd was talking about like focusing on your sphere of influence. We all have. Well, I would say in the city of Atlanta, definitely you got black boys all around. And so just showing up for one can be really powerful. We're not saying that you need to go out and do, what have you. And if you're a father, make sure that you're showing up for yours in your home. I think that's also important as well. And I know some folks that were really great educators, mentors, and sometimes that they were like, I'm going out. No. You focus on the home first too.
Yeah.
So, but I think the first thing is always the first rule of leadership is showing up in my book.
Yeah.
So that's the first start of it.
I got a question. Do you think that I'm under the belief that we can do more work? And when I say more, I mean it lasts longer, longevity-wise, with a smaller group as opposed to extending yourself too far. So a lot of organizations say they can say the whole world, say the whole world, and then they end up doing very small pieces for a lot of different.
Spread themselves thin.
They spread themselves thin, but that traumatizes our people.
Yeah.
Because you can't show up fully.
Yeah.
When you can show up fully for one, completely in its totality, and then that person can fully show up somewhere else, so forth, so on, until your bandwidth has been, you don't want to grow too big for your britches. But dare you do that, and then you become an organization that is only there for money. And not for the people.
So one of the
capitalism.
That's what. So that's why I think it's important for us when we talk about I remember Coach. We probably talked about this. I know Casey and I talked about. There's so many organizations that are focused on being sustainable rather than being effective, and it's very interesting to kind of see that approach in this day and age. I think the reason why. I think you all, that you all are definitely doing great work, is because it's you're trying to solve not just try to alleviate, right? Not just trying to mitigate. And I think that's really important when we start to think about organizations that you support, that you serve with, how you design programming. Are you creating dependency? We see that a lot. So you start to see, I work with a lot of different organizations across the country, and a lot of times that's the first question. We talk about, what are your outputs, what and so on. Then if they start off with a sustainability conversation, I'm like, wait a minute, because a lot of it is fully determined, and dependent on your roster growing, right? I want to see how many people you can get off your roster. How many people have you actually truly empowered, where they can be self-sustaining? That's what we really want to look at, where they can be supported and they can, the idea of, we know they've been successful when they felt that they've done it themselves, right? Yeah. So where can we get that place? Where can we make sure that we get, what I love about our organization is that we're trying to get them to that idea, that mindset, and so on. So
Self-efficacy. The goal is
absolutely. Mastery all the way through. Yep.
I want you to be able to do for yourself, man.
A lot of it is that the cure or the money ain't in the cure, right? It's in the treatment of the symptoms, and then it's a lot of the people that, I've been in this. I haven't been in the nonprofit game in a professional, trained in the classical and a professional sense as you gentlemen have.
That may have helped you though. That may have helped you.
I think that's the thing. Work from other places. It's like you start figuring out the game.
Exactly.
That's it.
And from the outside looking in, I have been able to see it's a hustle that people have really it's a hustle down from the conference hustling, getting free trips, free meals, 3 months out of the year just to travel around, go to conferences to solve nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's a hustle from that to people hustling politicians when they know it's election time and they got money to spend and they gonna spend it and they gonna get it out of them any way that they can. Like all facets of it is a big hustling game, and when people don't have when people didn't come, I didn't come into it as capitalism, like how you were saying, you know what I'm saying? It was a thing that I did on overtime while I was, you know what I'm saying, in order to get it to this point where I could quit to get here. But my reason for doing it was because I personally wanted to see the change in the kids.
Well, you said it perfectly, Aaron. Yeah, that and the ability to go deep, man. I think to all points, and I know this has become on a varying levels, like a critique of kind of like the nonprofit sector and the social sector as a whole, but like mission creep is real.
Yeah. All the time.
Like,
For real.
Yeah.
I tell my team all the time, like, we don't have to be everything to everybody.
Right.
Like there are other organizations who do this work more effectively and more impactfully than us. Other people have deeper relationships in certain communities than us. Like it does not have to be on us to solve everybody's problems. And I think that's the part where you talk about the sustainability of work, that people are so concerned with being everything to everyone that they don't carve out a lane for themselves to say, this is what we do. I really appreciate, centering back on and the work you all do. And I've heard, Casey, and you answer this question that people are like, well, why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? And you're just like, that's not what we're here to do. That's not the mission that we have been given.
Right.
And when you have that level of clarity and you ask that question too, and you've heard me talk about this, Aaron, all the time, like I can do more with 5 people well aligned than I can do with 100 people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
We see that.
So,
you see that.
Yeah. So I just appreciate, one, I want to say this to you all, that I appreciate you all's clarity. I appreciate you all's commitment to the work. And 2, just in the critique of the space, that we need more people who, to that degree, are focused on doing what they do well at an exceptional level and with the level of depth to create the impact that we need.
Perfect example. When we look you go to your local grocery store and you look at bread. There's a million different types of bread.
Yeah.
I don't have to be all the bread.
Right. You that one.
I can eat my potato bread right here.
Yeah. I thought you were going Ezekiel, but
I thought sourdough.
Personally,
okay.
I can't.
Yeah.
But I can be I can be a SME in my area.
Yeah.
And make more of an impact. And that's what Hay does. Like, you all have a totally focused mission, and the fray is in not falling victim to need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Need
Yeah.
Will have you contorting yourself.
will have you contorting yourself and creating and doing things that are not aligned to your mission. And now you are another nonprofit here that is only here for the money.
Yeah.
And how would we even be able to tell and warn the young people that we support and serve regarding that? Like, hey, when you're in a space where you feel that you lack, that you feel that you have to do it from a need standpoint, or you're feeling from a deficit standpoint, and you start chasing things, how do it's very difficult. We have to always make sure that we're modeling that as an organization, because we're teaching that to them.
Right.
And that's really important to kind of make sure, if we're talking about mastery, we're talking about self-efficacy, we have to make sure that we are also masters of our craft, masters of our work as well. Yeah. The other part that I was thinking about, and I mentioned this at a talk a while back, that projects and programs and initiatives don't create sustainable change or transformative change. Yeah. Only movements do. And one of the things that I think that we're doing, and definitely as I watch you all do this work, is trying to really get a movement around this. The movements don't necessarily have to be the movement is not just the organization. The organization is a part of the movement, and it has a particular focus, specific focus as you move through. And then we collaborate when necessary in an area that we don't have a subject matter expertise. And then we do that, and that's how you build it around. And so I think that is something that I love about how we are approaching the work. It's like, this is how we do it. This is what we focus on, and we're really good at it. We partner with folks that can do something else. If they're really good at it, and we are all focused on the same outcome, and related outcomes, then we can move forward.
I like that.
Yeah.
That goes to the value revolution conversation.
Let's go.
That
Yeah.
Daniel has, right? When you talk about movement,
Yep.
a values movement.
Yeah.
Hay is rooted in values. It's a values movement.
Yep.
So when we talk about moving through values, we are going beyond just doing the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you can look at what time is it now. You have young men here programming right now, because it's not about the program, it is a values movement.
Yeah.
I believe in your values. You are helping me create values of my own.
Yep.
So when we are warning young people or growing young people, it's about having true, authentic, value-based conversations.
See.
Yeah.
Because our values can show up in a way that is digestible. Our values can show up in a way that is not necessarily the most coy or very... You can curse somebody out with your values, and they know that it's love, as opposed to telling someone, hey, no. And then they know, like, oh yeah, you don't love us. All right. So I think it's a values movement.
Yeah.
And I'll say this and then I'm done. Last organization that I was managing, a program, I used to say, in order for us to resuscitate the community, we have to have CPR, collaboration, partnerships, and sharing of resources.
See.
Hay does all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Collaborate, partner, and share resources.
Yeah.
AKA, I can't do it all.
Right.
I know this, but I'm good at this.
Yeah.
You're good at that.
And that's fine.
We can build a community of values
Yep.
to help resuscitate the community.
Let me backtrack. A community around
Shared values.
Share
value.
Because we see it the same, we believe it the same. And that doesn't mean we are the same.
Doesn't mean we do it the same.
Right, doesn't mean we do it the same.
Yeah.
But it's the fact of saying we believe this thing is important enough
sure.
for us to bring our full selves, to your conversation earlier, our resources, and the institutions that back us into a space where we're going to try to say, let's make it happen together. Right? And like that's the best example of what collaborations and movement building is. Right? Like once you come to that place of consensus around what you believe, and you start to say, well, how do we start to orient our action around our belief system?
Yep.
And then you start to say, well, how do we translate that into movement or impact? Then you start to say, okay, now we've got a longitudinal pathway into the change that we want to see.
Absolutely.
And of course, in this particular case, and the community that you all are particularly touching, like there's a lot of people who say that they have care for it or say that they want to see impact for it, but then you don't see the alignment of value and action. Right.
And your values are always going to show up more than your words.
Absolutely.
Your values are actually going to determine more of your actions. And I think what's cool about this is not, I remember when I think we taught, and Casey and I talked, it was like, hey, the Hay House was coming. I was like, oh, okay. So we're moving with our feet. We're talking with our feet now.
That's right.
You know, it wasn't about we were going to try to raise all this money and then try to go here and here and here and here. No. We're going to do this in an intentional way, because you know how it is. People have two tongues. It's one, they have the one up top and the one with their feet and hands. And we try to make sure that I love what you all do. And on the other side of this camera, you see everything that's like, hey, this is feet and hand work. They're actually outside doing something right now, working with their feet and hands.
Right.
And I think that's really important that we focus on the values are going to show up about what we do, not just what we say, not just about the great marketing and the hoopla projects here and there. It's really about what you see is really the impact, the impact of what we're going to yield from. So.
Blessed is the child.